I went to the original Renaissance Pleasure Faire as a mushroom. Here's how I made my outfit. For those of you who are new here, hi, my name is Clarissa, and this is Beckoning Adventure. Sadly, this is going to be my very last crafting video that's gonna start with me going to Joann Fabrics. R.I.P. Joann's. At this stage, I didn't really know what I was doing. Listen, I had never made a mushroom hat before. Scratch that. I had never made any hats before. So I kind of knew what I was after color-wise. I knew that I needed a top color and a bottom color. And I brought my skirt that I was going to wear for reference to make sure that I found the right colors. But in fabric, color is not the only thing that you're looking for. So there's a little bit more to it. But so far, I felt like we were on the right path. I did have a reference picture of a mushroom, and so I kind of knew what I was doing, but when I found this fabric right here, I knew I was onto something good because this fabric, the one that I'm wrestling, this fabric had a very organic feel to it already. It already just like perfectly resembles what the underside of a mushroom looks like, and so I knew that I was going in the right direction. But this kind of bothered my OCD a little bit because now the underside of the mushroom is going to be super realistic, and now I've kind of pigeonholed myself into making the top also kind of realistic. I could have still gone with like a pretty fun pattern, but that would not have worked for my OCD, and so I was like, okay, we're just going into like a super realistic like direction. Did I say direction too many times in this video already? Listen, this video is going to be basically just me yapping over what I'm doing. So feel free to at any point switch off the commentary and just watch the video in silence, because I'm just going to be telling you in real time what I am seeing on the screen. This is kind of like a director's cut for DIY. So I'm just telling you what I'm seeing, which is what you are also seeing. And so it's just context of what you're seeing. So I guess you could just, that's the mushroom. Oh, reference picture. Got it. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I was on a budget. Okay, so this is crafting on a budget. I went to the Dollar Tree and found these two poster boards that I was going to use for this project. They're just inexpensive pieces of cardboard, basically. They do have a nasty fold in them, but I will show you how I dealt with that in a second. I'm using a piece of yarn to help me draw a circle. I was going to make this hat as wide as my shoulders, or as close to that as possible. So the poster board is only so big and only has so much space. So I was going to use this piece of yarn to kind of help me maximize the space and get the perfect circle by finding the center and then tying the string to a piece of chalk pen that I also found from the Dollar Tree. Worked really good, by the way. It has like a waxy consistency. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. It helped me to draw a circle, which I used to then cut out the circle, and I wanted the mushroom to be as wide as my shoulders so that it could give me some sun protection for the day as well, and just protect me from the elements. Joke's on me though, there was no sun on the day that I went. Like no sunshine whatsoever. Everybody kept warning me, hey, bring an umbrella, it's gonna be sunny out. And I was like, no, I'm not bringing an umbrella. I am an umbrella. And then psych, no umbrellas were necessary for sun because it did not sun, but it did rain. So I guess it still kind of helped, but yeah, that was the goal with this. Also, save your scraps, all of them. I used every inch of this cardboard, so save all of your scraps. I'm also repurposing an old bucket hat. I was going to be wearing a wig for the day, and I didn't want there to be a lot of static if I wanted to remove the hat. I also wanted to have like really clean edges. Did I mention I have OCD? Yeah. So I decided the bucket hat would be a good use for the part that goes onto my head. Also, save that round piece that you just cut out in the middle because that's going to be super useful for later on. You're going to use that again, I promise, okay? Okay, so I just basically got some wooden dowels and stuck it into the creases, and this really helped to keep it from bending in that spot, and that's basically how I dealt with that fold, and it worked perfectly, honestly, better than I thought. And then I essentially just hot glued this bucket hat to this piece of cardboard. Right now, everything is going to look messy for a good long while, but I wanted to have things be really finished. I did not want any rough edges or anything like that. So everything that I'm doing, I have in mind of getting like nice, clean, smooth edges. I wanted this to actually resemble something that could have sprouted from the ground. And so everything I was doing, I had kind of a plan of what I can do to make it look a little bit more clean around the edges. But essentially, here's your first look at what that mushroom hat was going to look like. I had a high bun on that day, so it was not supposed to look that high. But yeah, so anyway, this is what the hat is going to look like. Let's move on to padding. Okay, so I wasn't going to paint any of this cardboard. I was just going to line it with this it's basically, I guess, is it felt? Is it just felt? I don't know. Anyway, it's like an upholstery fabric. And it just, you know what? It's felt. It's basically, it's just felt. Okay. So I just got this lining material, which is basically just felt. And then I just cut it to size and basically just stuck it on there. And I'm showing you how I'm going to be dealing with those edges because, again, I had the edges in mind. I did not want anything to look unfinished or whatever. So once again, I'm going to cut out a circle. This one you probably don't necessarily need to save, although I will say I pretty much like used all of the felt material because I lined everything with this before I put on my other fabrics to just give it a little bit, one, buffer from the color underneath, and then two, just to give it that extra little bit of padding to make it look just a little bit more bouncy. I could have probably stuffed my mushroom a little bit more than I did. Just spoilers for the future. I didn't really, use any of this to stuff the mushroom. I've seen other people stuff their mushrooms. I did not. So that's maybe the one thing I would change in this to just give it a little extra volume. I stuck it as close to that bucket hat edge as possible, but I left some of the edge open because I was going to tuck some of the other fabrics into that later. Once again, thinking of just smooth edges. Here we go with my organic beautiful fabric, and I'm going to show you in a second what I meant with tucking it in, because I was going to cut these into strips and then use one strip at a time to create a beautiful pleat, essentially. Mind you, I have no sewing abilities. All of this is basically glued. This is all just, for the most part, fabric glue, hot glue, E6000, spray adhesive, multiple types of glue. But here we go. We're pleating the fabric, and then I was going to just go section by section and pleat them into each other. It took a little bit of time to get it going, but for the most part, this fabric was decently weighted. It looks like tissue paper. It's not as lightweight as tissue paper, thankfully. So it did have a little bit of weight to it, not too much, because of course I'm going to have to carry this around on my head. Mind you, it was heavy. It was heavy, and I should have caught that it was going to be that heavy, but I didn't. Anyway, here's how I tucked it into that fold. So you see how I didn't completely glue it all the way. I just glued it to the edge of that bucket hat, and the rest I'm tucking into that fold, and then I glued that down. So it had like a smooth, rounded finish. And that's how I did it all the way around. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me do it a million more times, but this is how I did it, and this is how it looked when it was done. You're welcome. That took forever. You did not want to watch me do all that, I promise. Yeah, so basically this was going to be my underside of my mushroom hat, and I really love the organic feel of it, but again, I wanted to have nice clean edges, so this is where I flipped it all over, and I just used clothespins to hold it in place. And now I was going to start working on the framing. See how I'm using all of my scraps? Very mindful, very cutesy. We reduce, reuse, recycle everything here. So I basically cut myself a couple of strips to create sort of a cage for my hat. But then this is where things kind of took a little bit of a turn, because once I did this, I didn't really know where to go from here. So I needed to take a break and figure out how I was going to do the top part of this. So let's work on my corset a little bit. I got this off Amazon. It was very cost effective. I'll leave you the link if you wanted to. It cinches in the back and then clasps in the front, which is great if you're by yourself and need to do it, but I don't like the look of the clasps. So even though I love the utility of it, I don't like the look. So I got these cute little buttons, which they're not really buttons because they just have a hole in the back. But I decided to take some of my little pearls, which have holes through them, and use that hole to stick a needle through it, and then use the needle to hold the pearl down onto the back of it and then just glue it. But you want access to that little hole because you're going to use that to sew the buttons on later, so they're nice and sturdy. But I also in the past have made for D23 a corset like this, where I also did the buttons and the little fringe off the side, and so I knew this was what I was going to do this again. It worked so well the first time, so this is basically me repeating what I had already done to a different corset. It was the same corset, just a different color. Same corset, different font. Yeah. But this color I felt would match the vibe of this outfit a little bit more. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. I've done this before. I knew it worked. So I basically took a piece of lace and then pleated it. Now, previously, I bought a piece of lining or fabric or whatever that was already pleated. That was way easier. Okay, definitely mental note, do that next time. This was a pain. I had to pleat these. It was so hardcore. Now I'm sewing the buttons, but joke's on me because the pearl just snapped off. So okay, I sewed the pearls on first. And then I went back and I buffed the pearl. I buffed the back of the button. Listen, this is after I had already glued all of the pearls onto buttons and waited for them to dry. First one snaps off. I'm like, okay, F that. Okay, so I ripped all the pearls off of the other ones, which came off way too easily. That's why I decided to buff them for some rough texture for the glue to stick to. And that worked. And then I just added way more hot glue than I thought I was going to need. Back to the hat. I forgot to film some of this, but it's okay. This is the part that I cut out in the beginning. Remember, I told you to hold on to it. This is going to be the top of my mushroom cap. And I cut out pieces or like strips of cardboard. And this is where I realized that I'm going to have to go into a different direction with it because I did not like the way the cardboard edge looked. So I wanted there to be a more organic feel. But in the meantime, this is how I stuck that mushroom cap together. And then the pieces of cardboard were going to be too flimsy, so I used wooden dowels for that also, and I glued it, but I reinforced it with duct tape because I just felt like that would really just give it something extra to grip onto. I wanted it to be very sturdy grip. And then because I didn't like the edge of the cardboard, I decided to instead use something with a more organic shape. I wanted it to have a rounded shape. And so I decided, what can I do? Well, of course, I can go to the Dollar Tree and find myself a very nifty summer accessory, a pool, a noodle. Okay, and the pool a noodle would perfectly go onto this. And I was like, okay, I'm living my best upholstery life right now. I'm getting a staple gun. I'm gonna be stapling this. I'm gonna pull the fabric tight. I'm gonna staple it. It's gonna look phenomenal. That's what I had in mind. Okay, this is my internal monologue that you're hearing right now. So that's what I was gonna do, and then I was just gonna stick it onto the base, and it was gonna be hypothetically perfect because the edges of the fabric would go, inside and nobody would be the wiser and you would never see an edge. And it would have this gorgeous rounded edge. You know what? I was really bummed out about this process. There's probably a way easier way to do this. I definitely chose the hardest way for me to do this, but I thought it would look really cute and I was already feeling really cute. And so this is what I was gonna do. First things first, though, I knew that sticking a pool noodle was going to be a challenge, so I Googled what glue to use with a pool noodle, and they told me, and I got that glue. And this is spoilers for ahead. That glue was terrible. So I also picked up some more of this lace that I used on my corset, and I decided, let me add another project to my life that's going to take 10 years off my life and make it even harder for myself to complete this project by also adding a lace trim. I had some scraps left over, so I was very proud of myself. Like I said, reduce, reuse, recycle, and I used all of it. I used every little bit of this. That was the perfect amount that I needed. 2 rolls and this little bit. That's exactly what I needed for this hat. But I had to hand pleat all of this, which is what I'm demonstrating to you right now. It took not just 10 years of my life. It took eons of my life, okay? This was the most tedious project. I should have never done this to myself, but I did it. I recommend you don't. Here comes that amazing fabric. Again, also... peep Once Upon a Time in the background. I was watching and catching up and trying to finish Once Upon a Time, which I finally did, by the way. This is spray adhesive, and I'm just gluing this. That's what I'm doing. Back to Once Upon a Time. Okay, so I've started watching this show many times, and I always stop watching the show because it gets very repetitive and boring. I want to say, like, every time I've watched it, I stopped watching after the Peter Pan series. Season? Yes. Season, not series. Okay. So after the Peter Pan season, I kind of got introduced to Selena, did the Wicked thing, started the Anna Elsa, and then I was like, okay, I'm done with this. It's getting too repetitive. The heroes do something, they get teleported, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. The heroes win. It starts all over again. And so I was getting really fed up with it. And every time I would quit right then. And then I was like, you know what? I need to finally just finish this show because every time I talk about it, everybody always tells me the ending is so good. Everybody loves the ending. Everybody loves how this series finished. So I was like, you know what? I got to just finish it. I did. But there's like 3 seasons at the end there that's horrendous. Okay. Absolutely. Hogwash. Okay. I'm glad this series is over. You know what? Back to crafting. I'm not good at this. Okay. So I did about 2, maybe 2.5 levels of that upholstery felt fabric to just give it a little extra oomph. You should really not do what I'm doing here. You need to be in a well-ventilated space. My space is decently ventilated, but this adhesive, the spray adhesive, sticks to everything. To this day, I have like stickiness on this table that I'm using, which, you know, was a choice. That was, don't do what I am doing. It's not, yeah. Also, don't like sit with your face right in it because you're going to be just high off of glue for a little bit. See, here we go. I had to pin this sucker down, which was really tough to do because I glued that previous level down very, very well. And then, so basically I pinned everything. I used the fabric glue once again, and then I also used clothing pins to hold everything in place. This is me taking it all off, okay? It looks great. It's just extremely tedious. Buy yourself one that's already pleated, or just don't do it. Although I will say it did add a really nice, cute little effect around the edge, so it was worth it. I would just never do it again, because it really was a very tedious process. And mind you, I have holes in every one of my fingers from all of those little pins because it was really tough to get through the fabric that I had already really diligently glued to the cardboard. So that was not really pinnable fabric, but I did it. So here we go with this glue. This took me 5 hours. I was crying. I was furious. I was not having it with these pool noodles. Nothing I did would get it to stick. I had to will this puppy together. It was, in my mind, I was like a crafting superstar, crafting with a pool noodle, and it just did not work. They told me E6000 would be the way to go. E6000 did absolutely nothing for these pool noodles. I then tried hot glue, which peeled right off. You saw me peeling it off right there. It just peeled right off. The E6000 was like eating the pool noodle at one point, but just making it tacky and then never sticking. The hot glue was melting it, but also just hardening right away and not sticking it. I then tried my trusty spray adhesive because, you know, why not? I even tried fabric glue, you guys. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. Nothing would get this pool noodle to stick to itself. Nothing, okay? So eventually, after 5 hours of me just crying into a pool noodle, I just decided to duct tape the whole thing. The hilarious part of it is I specifically went searching for yellow pool noodles, okay, so that the color wouldn't be too crazy, just in case the color showed through. And here I am, bright red duct tape, because that's all I had. Oh, you guys. And then the duct tape just completely kind of wonked my shape. In my mind, this was going to be the perfect circle. It was going to be amazing. And it just, you know what? Sometimes it doesn't go the way that you want it to go. And those are just lessons for life, I guess. Just, you know, but this part was fun. This part, stapling into this pool noodle felt like vindication. I felt really good about this. And I felt so smart. Okay, the way that I wrapped these little pieces of cardboard around the edge, I felt like Newton or something. Who's somebody who did something cool? Whatever. I felt amazing. And then here I go again, huffing more glue, as if I needed more glue on this day. It was a very gluey day for me. And it worked great. My fingers were sticking to the fabric. So it does not stick a pool noodle to itself, but it does stick your fingers to fabric. So there you go. Essentially, it doesn't matter. The rough edges were hidden behind this pool noodle. And then I just took this whole top and stuck it down with E6000. No more visible pool noodle. So that was the good thing here. Like, at least I wouldn't have to stick pool noodle to anything anymore. But yeah, I just basically glued the top to the bottom. And that's how I created clean edges. I also forgot to film this, but I had a roll of pearl on a string, and I put that around the edge too because the wonkiness of the pool noodle created some gaps in some spaces, and I didn't like that, so I just stuck some pearls in there. And then to create the beautiful, more organic top of this, I decided to take a bunch of pearls and torture myself and sat here for hours gluing individual pearls to the top of this hat. And that is literally all I did and how I did this. And this is how I made this mushroom hat. And that is the end of this whole saga. If you want to make a mushroom hat, probably don't listen to any advice I've given you. I did it the hardest possible way I could have by just at the end willing it together with duct tape. So this might not be the best like tutorial to follow, but I hope it at least served as comedic relief. You're welcome.